Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Donovan, and tonight I am super excited to share with you a brand new watch from our friends over at Kospet. This is the Kospet Optimus Pro, and it's available right now at gearbest.com for $170, as you can see right there. And this thing is an absolute beast. When this thing was first announced, I was pretty excited for all that it has to offer. So we'll run through some of these specs here in just a little bit. But first, let me also mention that there is a second version of this device as I scroll down. Right here, this is called the Kospet Optimus. Basically, the only difference between what I'm going to be unboxing and this one here is this one has 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage, whereas the Kospet Optimus Pro, it's $20 more. It's $170 basically. And this one comes with 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of internal storage. Is that necessary for a watch? Probably not, but it's pretty darn awesome that you can get it. So this thing is just an absolute beast. And we're going to talk about why that is in just a second. Let's run through just some quick specs about the watch. So first of all, it has an 800 milliamp hour battery, and with that is also a dual system. So I mentioned earlier that it has a dual system, and I think it kind of works like the TicWatch Pro, where there's kind of like a essential mode basically on this watch. You can see it's obviously quite big. I'm going to go ahead and put it up right next to my Kospet Hope. So it looks like roughly around the same size of the Kospet Hope. So this one has an 8 megapixel camera. We have a couple of buttons there. We'll run through what all these things have to do, but let's go ahead and open this up. So pretty similar strap as what you get with the Kospet Hope. In fact, it might be the exact same strap, which I honestly didn't feel was very comfortable. It's a 24 millimeter band. It is completely removable, as you can see there. Now this one has a sealed in SIM, but that also means you have an IP67 water resistance. So that's really cool. So that's a thumbs up there. We have a heart rate monitor, pretty typical heart rate monitor that you get with these Android watches. And to be completely honest with you, I've never really found them to be super accurate. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you want it for fitness, this is probably not going to be the watch for you, because typically these watches are mediocre at best when it comes to fitness. Now I think that looks like a microphone right up here, and down here is a speaker. So we'll take a look at that in just a little bit. But it does have a ceramic bezel. You can see it does come with, okay, there is no plastic screen protector underneath that. However, in the box, I believe there is one. It says there comes with one. So let's go ahead and take a look. So what do we get here in the box? All right, so we have a micro USB charging cable and a screwdriver. The screwdriver is going to be for taking off this little screw here, so you can put your SIM card in there. And actually, we can talk about that SIM in just a second, because this thing supports 4G LTE, and it will support LTE on T-Mobile, AT&T, and any GSM network in the United States. And we'll take a look at those bands here in just a second. So it does come with some extra screws, which is nice because these are super easy to lose. I can't tell you the number of times I've lost one of these little screws while trying to take them out and replacing a SIM in a watch. And then over here, I'm guessing this must be the charger. Now there is the actual screen protector for the watch, so I'll put that on in a little bit. There is an instruction guide. I'm not going to take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and boot on the watch while we're looking at this. And let's see. Got some silica gel. And is there something else in there? Oh yeah, there. I was going to say there's got to be a charging box somewhere, a charging cradle. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, this is cool. All right, so this is actually the first Android smartwatch that I reviewed that has a little charging cradle here. You can hear that speaker. Yeah, that speaker is definitely down there, and I'm assuming that's probably that microphone because I don't see any other holes anywhere. So that's got to be the microphone up here and then the speaker down there. All right, so this, of course, is going to magnetize. There it is. Whoops. Okay, so it's going to go around the bezel there, of course. So we have the pins there. They just need to line up there, and then it just magnetizes. And, of course, you'll plug in your micro USB to charge it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing set up, and then we'll kind of run through some of the other specs and share with you my first impressions of the watch. All right, so as you can see right down there in the background, the watch is doing an update. So I want to go ahead and run through some of the specs while it's doing that. So first of all, we have a MediaTek 6739 processor and Android 7.1 on the watch. That's a quad-core processor, and I already mentioned that 32 gigs of internal storage. Running down here, we have wireless connectivity, of course. We have 4G, and right down here, notice that it has bands 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 12, and 17. So the majority of the bands you're going to need for the US for GSM. So that's great. We also have Bluetooth 4.0. We have GPS built in as well, so you can use it for tracking workouts. We have an AMOLED display that's 1.39 inches. I believe, if I remember, it's like a 454 by 454 pixel density. So we have an 8 megapixel camera. Now it says rear camera, but of course it is actually a side mounted camera. And one other thing I wanted to mention here is it does actually, when I put it right next to the Kospet Hope, it does look like they actually slimmed it up a little bit, because notice that the bezel is not as large as what you get over here on the Kospet Hope. So it is actually a little bit smaller in terms of the watch face. The watch face is actually the same size, but the bezel here is smaller. But in terms of thickness, it might be about the same. It does look like they kind of slimmed down the Kospet Hope, but added in some new features. So that's really cool. So now running down here, we have a single SIM slot, of course. Let's see if there's anything else worth saying here. Okay, and we already mentioned that it is waterproof, but it's not really waterproof. It's IP67 water resistant. I already mentioned that 800 milliamp hour battery. Let's see if there's anything else here worth mentioning. So dual system. So this is something worth mentioning. So it does have an always display time setting. And when you go into the watch, which I'll show you in just a little bit, there is an option that's going to give you extra battery life, kind of like the TicWatch Pro from what I understand. Now, I haven't actually activated it yet because I've been installing an update, but that is really cool. I already mentioned that ceramic watch bezel and a removable watch band. So of course, if you don't like the 24 millimeter band that it comes with, you can swap it out. And personally, I'm definitely going to be swapping it out. I'm not a huge fan of the silicone here. Not that I mind silicone, because obviously with my Garmin watch here, I'm using a silicone strap, but just for some reason, this one wasn't super comfortable when I had it with the Kospet Hope. There's that. So there it is, the AMOLED Retina display here. So what does it say? 454 by 454 for a 372 ppi display, which is really cool. You can have sports management app, and yeah, that's pretty much everything. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the watch. So it says installation complete, current battery at 77%. So it says the firmware was updated. We'll check that. And now it's uploading. So once that's done, we're going to go ahead and come back, and I'll walk you through some of the software here. All right, so I got the watch set up with my Google Pixel 3 AXL, as you can see right there in the background. So first we're going to run through the software on the watch itself, and then we're going to run through the software on the phone that you're going to use with the watch. But before we do that, let me just mention how you get it connected. So when you first power it on, it's going to ask you for your language. Once you select a language, it's going to ask you, or it's going to give you a QR code. That QR code is going to have you download this app called WeWatch 2. So you can see the icon right there. It's available in the Google Play Store. Also, it does work with Apple devices as well. So if you want to use this watch with an Apple device, by all means, you can do that with the same app. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the software. So here at the top, we're just going to scroll up, and you're going to see the connectivity here. We scroll over to the right, we have our quick settings. There's a number of quick settings that are available. That's the one you're going to use if you have it connected with a SIM card. I'm going to test it out with a SIM card in a future video, but I do know that it will work because my other Kospet watches that I've used in the past work great with T-Mobile. And we'll slide over here to the right. So there's a trash. That's basically going to kill all the apps in the background. And then we have a music player control. So just a quick heads up, this one will basically only work with a couple of apps, which we'll take a look at when we take a look at the phone here in just a little bit. So that's all of the quick settings there. If I scroll over from the left, we have our notifications, and you can see I don't have any at the moment. If we scroll from the bottom, we're going to get into our activities. So it's going to show you just some of the step information, calories, and distance that you've traveled for the day. Now, honestly, this tends to be a pretty rough estimate. The step count is pretty accurate, but everything else is really not that great, because like I've run for like a 5-mile run before, and it just wasn't very accurate here in terms of the distance. So just something to keep in mind. This is just one of the watch faces. If you want to change the watch face, you can hold down here and you can scroll over. Now this is kind of like the digital one that's going to show you just a ton of information. Notice that it does have like a bit of a bezel there, so I'm not really sure why it doesn't fill up the whole screen. Let's go back to the original one here. So that one fills up basically the whole screen, whereas that one that was digital doesn't quite fill up the whole screen. So I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it wasn't designed specifically for this watch, but that was one thing I noticed there. So there's one that does fit pretty much the whole screen there. So anyways, we have a bunch of options here that it comes with, but then also if you go over here all the way to the right, we can create our own, and then there's an option to add even more. And there's a ton available for these Android watches. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there is a plethora of watch faces available. All right, so that's how you change the watch face. I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to this digital one, even though it's not filling up the whole screen. All right, so there is another setting that's really important that I want to go through, and that's if you want to change it from a circle watch face. Well, basically, this is for apps, and we'll take a look at that in just a little bit, but sometimes you'll want a square mode because certain apps don't work well with the full screen mode that you can see here. So the way to change that is right here. So you're going to hold up this button, and it's going to allow you to switch that mode. So notice here it doesn't do anything, but if I go into some of the apps here, it will actually make a difference, especially when you go into third-party apps like anything from the Google Play Store. And just for the record, this is running a full version of the Google Play Store, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm not sure, I actually don't have it set up with my Google account yet, so that's not going to show anything at the moment. But just as a quick run through with some of the apps, so Assistant is going to allow you to connect it up to your phone and use some of the connectivity options here. So obviously there's the connect phone option. We can reuse it as a remote capture. We can use it as a music controller for our phone. Now in that case, it's actually going to work with a number of different apps, but again, it's still limited as to what you can use it with. Then we also have Find My Device, so that's going to help you find your phone, basically make your phone go off. There's that long standby mode. So if I click on this, it does run through a few things. So it basically tells you how to turn it on. You can go ahead and turn it on right there. I'm not going to do that at the moment, but this is what it's going to show you and what's actually supported when you have it on there. So we have sport record, step counter, calorie, heart rate, and notifications. So those are the things that are still going to work. Everything else is basically shut off. You're not going to be able to do anything else with the watch other than those things, but that's actually quite a bit that it still does, even in that long standby mode. We have phone, we have contacts, messaging. Of course, that's going to be your SMS. We have settings. Now, these are if you're using them as a standalone device. So just as a heads up there, this one does not have Bluetooth calling as far as I can tell. So there's not too many of these Android watches that actually support Bluetooth calling. So I don't see it on here. So I'm assuming these are specifically only if you're using it with a SIM card in the actual watch. So then we have some settings here. So we can adjust our sound, display, the app list style, our connectivity. So that's where you're going to connect it up to maybe some Bluetooth headphones. You can connect it up to your Wi-Fi. That's where you're also going to turn on your GPS if you want to use it for that purpose. We have some gestures. Basically, it's just going to be flip to turn the screen on. That's really the only gesture that we have available here. We have power saving mode, which is actually different from that extreme power saver or whatever they called that earlier. And then we can adjust some other settings there as well. We have the Play Store, so obviously you know what that is. Voice search, that's our Google Voice Search. So if you want to use Google Voice Search, there it is. Heart rate monitor, fitness. So let's go over here into the fitness and let's see if this actually is going to use. So this is similar to previous ones. Now I'll have to test this out to see if it actually uses GPS, because I've found that with some of these, it really doesn't even use the GPS, so it's almost kind of worthless in a way. And you'll want to download a third-party app from the Google Play Store, really, if you want to get accurate GPS, because like, for instance, Strava will actually accurately use the GPS from the watch, whereas if you use the one that was directly on it on previous watches, it really was just estimating it wasn't even using GPS when you would try to track an outdoor run. But I'll have to test that out in a future video. For now, we're going to leave that. We do have a weather option. So right now I don't have it, so it's updating there. We can go ahead and go into our camera. So pretty simple camera here. So basically it's just going to, it's right over here, it's side mounted. So it's a little awkward to try to take pictures with, but you can do it. So there you go, take a picture. And then we do also have video there as well. And we can go out of that. We have our gallery, music. So this is music. That's the music app native to the watch. That's how you're going to play music with that. We have a sound recorder, file manager, browser. Of course, it's going to be your internet browser, and you can download other browsers if you want. Calculator, clock, downloads. So this is some other downloads. Calendar, pretty chintzy calendar typically. Yep. So same thing that you normally get. It's basically just a standard like calendar. That's all it is. It doesn't actually show you any of your notifications. That's going to be over here in that notification shade. So if you have an app, or if you have, like, for instance, your calendar built into your watch, it will give you the notifications there, not in this calendar. All right, so, and you can see I can swipe to the left to go back into previous apps. We do have maps there, so that's actually using Google Maps, and then we do have an app store here. And you can see we can download a few apps. Now, you can also go through the Google Play Store to download those exact same apps. So it does have those four. But then again, you can go into the Play Store. Now, notice that if I swipe to the right once, it's going to get me into all of my apps. If I swipe over to the right again, it'll basically take me into my activity app again, or my fitness app again. So that's pretty much everything on the watch. We're going to have to do a lot more testing on it to see what the battery life is like, and also test out that LTE, and we'll do some speed check tests with that as well. And then if we come into the app here, basically it's just going to show you your battery. This is where it's going to show you your fitness information. It's going to basically transfer the fitness information to the phone, same fitness information that's already on the watch. And while I'm doing that, I want to go ahead and turn it on that long standby mode while I'm walking through this, so you guys can see what that looks like. And this is just going to change the watch face. So this is just another way to change the watch face should you want to do that. That's there. And if I come down here, there's a few other settings that we can adjust here. So we can adjust our step count goal. We can look up the device. So basically it's going to make the device vibrate. We have music controls. And so this is what I was talking about earlier. Basically the only ones that we can control are Google Music and QQ Music, which I think is a Chinese thing. We do have an auxiliary input option here. I'm not really sure. I've never really used that before, so I'm not really sure what that is. We can send files back and forth from the phone to the watch. So if you want to maybe send some music, that's where you can do that. We do have a silent mode. That's that raise the screen mode again. App notifications. This is where you can pick and choose which apps you want to give notifications to the watch. So you can pick and choose which ones you want. So if there's some you don't want, you don't have to get them. And then that's pretty much everything you need to know about the app. So let me know what questions you guys have. I'm going to do a lot more coverage on this watch as I get to know it. It's very similar, honestly, to something like the Kospet Hope, but it's nice because they actually kind of reduce the size, which I kind of felt like this was kind of an obnoxiously large watch. So they've definitely reduced the size, so that's a thumbs up. They've also given you that long standby mode. So the idea here is that we can always keep that clock on, but it's not consuming as much battery power, but you have basically your essentials still here. So we have a watch face. I can't really change this watch face as far as I can tell, but if I notice that it's not touch responsive here when you're on that long standby mode. But if I click the button, it will give me my distance traveled, my calorie count, and my step count still. It's also going to keep the heart rate monitor on. So see the heart rate monitor working there. So that's cool. And that's pretty much it. So that's what you can use while it's in that long standby mode. And if you want to turn it off of that, basically just hold the power button down for 3 seconds, and it's going to reset the watch and bring you back into the main watch. So anyways, again, let me know what question you guys have about this new Kospet Optimus Pro. Pretty exciting watch. Oh, and one other thing I should mention is that this one has that IP67 water resistance that we didn't get on the Kospet Hope. So that's really cool. And also, I'll mention it real quick, we do have that improved battery tray, or that charging tray, which I think is definitely improvement over just kind of like having that little well, I'll show you what it looks like for the Kospet Hope, because that really is not the best way to charge. I definitely prefer this new little charging cradle that it comes with, because before you had to use something like, oh, I have it tucked away in here. So this is what the Kospet Hope comes with. And basically it just magnetizes here, and that magnet's really easy to just pop off versus having that little tray that you get with the Kospet Optimus Pro. So anyways, long enough video. Let me know what you guys have questions about in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.